Ad running now on TV and radio from the Minnesota DFL with bold statements about Senate District 4 candidate Dan Bohmer. He released a statement on social media saying the ad is filled with half-truths and lies. It mentions his messy divorce, domestic assault, and how he treats his children. But he says these claims were all dismissed by law enforcement and court for lack of evidence. He called on his opponent to request that the ads be stopped.
Now, Bohmer's opponent in this year's race, Rob Kupek, says he also released a statement on the ad saying it's important to remember Dan Bohmer is not the victim. Kupek says that former neighbors and family members of Bohmer reached out to him privately to share information of assaults of one of his ex-wives. He says he chose not to make it public and says shocked to see the ad created without his knowledge by the DFL, especially since it references kids who may have been victimized. Kupek goes on to say that this wasn't something that was just chalked up, and he supports survivors of domestic violence.